Hi everyone, and welcome to WeRise with Aaliyah. Today I am with Kausar Mukhtar, who is also one of my best friends.
Hi.
So the reason why I've got Kausar on today is because she is going to be heading up the express pillar of Rising Sisterhood. And if you don't know what Rising Sisterhood is, it's our new online community for Muslim women who are sick of patriarchal narratives that are controlling our lives and who want to really become empowered and live their truth. So the Rising Sisterhood membership is based on my FemPower coaching model. There are 5 keys to empowerment, which are educate, express, evolve, embody, and elevate. And they all represent different parts of the journey that a Muslim woman goes through in that process of shedding those old limiting patriarchal beliefs and internalized misogyny, cultural expectations, and just incorrect knowledge that has been imposed on us for, hundreds of years. We have now ingrained within ourselves, within our communities, to believe like this is what Islam is. This is what Islam says about gender in Islam. But actually, the truth is far, far different. So, the express pillar, which is what I want to concentrate on today, is all about giving women a space and a platform to really voice their concerns. And in particular, this is focusing on the taboos and the secrets and the things that women keep silent for fear of being shamed, fear of dishonoring their families, or just making themselves look bad. Because there is this fear I found in a lot of, and I don't know if you agree with me, Gossa, but a lot of women don't speak up about their own doubts about what Islam says about women because they're scared of being judged and they don't want to look like they're not a good Muslim or they're not knowledgeable. So they don't speak up about things. But also, there are really, really hidden things in our communities that women bear the brunt of that we don't talk about enough. And the express pillar is about giving voice to that, having a safe container, a non-judgmental space where women can just actually let it out. And it doesn't have to be done in a restrained kind of polite way. It's a space where women can actually rage and vent and express their anger as what has happened to them, because women just are always told we're not supposed to complain, right? We're not supposed to get angry. So this is part of the process, like naming the injustices and talking about the impact that it's had on our lives. So yeah, this is what you are going to be leading on.
Yeah, that's what I've
So
been told.
what you've been told. So with all guests, I always start with one question, which is what makes you rise?
Big question. I think what makes me rise is just a general passion for life. I do like and I have an interest in always learning. That's a really important thing. There's always something I want to still do and still discover. So I'm a kind of person who can never be bored, even if I lived for 1,000 years, because I just find so many things interesting. So I think it's my kind of learning and finding out more about a large variety of things. And I think all of those things that I'm learning about or I'm interested in are a path to God, like in a sense. Every experience is a new way of knowing Allah. So for me, it's always, yeah.
That is so beautiful. I love that so much. And tell us a little bit about your current passions.
Current passions. My current passions. Well, my main passion. I obviously I'm a singer and a poet and a writer, and those are sort of my main kind of passions at the moment. It's about writing from a female perspective, writing from a female perspective of a certain age, a certain life, and a certain experience, and especially related to song and poetry. It's always tragic women, and it's always women who want men to take them shopping for some reason because they can't go shopping themselves. Buy me a menga lenga or shopping karade. So that frustrates me slightly. Or women who say we'll worship the ground you walk on. So I'd like to kind of hear songs that reflect my own feelings, and I'm sure feelings of many middle-aged Muslim women around the world, hopefully. So yeah, that's one of my passions. I have others. I've got my bees outside in the garden, my beehives, and I need to sort of give them some attention today. But yeah, passions are just, like I said, learning is my biggest passion, is always learning.
When you say your feelings about being a Muslim woman of a certain age, and you think that a lot of other women will share those feelings, what kind of feelings are sort of overriding for you?
The feeling that you've had, especially, it is male, but it's female, this barrier between you and God, the barrier of sin, the barrier of kind of the thousands of piles of books that you've got to read, like all the, the alim courses, which is a barrier between you and the Quran, which is the actual source. So I think a lot of women, when they get to kind of the age when their kids have grown up, they sort of question, I assume so, they question the dogmatic practice of religion and real connection. As you get older, I think your ability, through having children, through your experiences, you have a bigger capacity to connect. And the connection of just prayer or just observing, fasting, or observing certain rules, I'm not doing the wrong thing, I'm doing the right thing, is sort of not enough of a connection with God.
Yeah, I completely feel that.
It's like, when you're married, to your husband, and you're sort of in love at the beginning, and then you get married, and then you have kids, and then you've got to drop them off, and then you've got to do the shopping, and then you start raising. The connection, you still have the physical intimacy, but it's not real intimacy. So you're doing the praying, you're doing the dogma, you're doing the you're doing. Then the kids go to uni, and you and your husband are there, and you think, shit, I don't know this person. We haven't got a lot to talk about. I'm not sure if I really. What's this relationship? Where's the intimacy? And I think the same with God. You get really busy in life. You're studying, you're chasing career, you're doing so many things. You're trying to please your in-laws, your husband, your children, your siblings, your parents. There's a lot to do. So you get to that age, kids are old and they don't need you as much, and you start to see, I think, the reality of the worldly relationships that you've been giving all your time to, and you think, well, me and God don't seem to really have that close a relationship. Similar.
It's such a great analogy. I really like that. And it's like in marriage, like you said, when you're going through the motions of daily life. And it's the same with religion, don't you think? That a lot of Muslims are just going through the motions. Like we're so bogged down, not just in all those worldly relationships that you said, but even our relationship with God is just focused on doing certain at a certain time in a certain way. And we've put so much effort and energy into sort of getting those things right that in the process we've lost our connection.
Yeah, human beings have limited energy. They either focus on observing all the acts and external expression, or internal. It's really hard to do both at the same time, I feel, sometimes. So I think it's where you put your energy, and we're so keen to look like we tick all the boxes. You're fasting, you're doing this, and you're doing all these extra things, and you might read so much Quran, and you've got to do these. So there's a lot of things you do, and send your kids to mosque. You think you're ticking all the get to heaven boxes. So, and I think even expression, because obviously one of the main things the Quran asks you to do and Islam asks you to do again and again is contemplate, to sit with the things and the verses that you've been told and all the information you've been told, but to sit and contemplate. And that is something I don't think you get a chance to do until you've raised your kids and until you're a bit older, until you've had life experience. What you're going to think about a particular situation at 18 is not how you're going to think about that when you're 38. And how you see it, your eyes change. You're thinking your brain is rewired again. Menopause, we know brain rewiring is hormonal. It doesn't just happen at puberty. It happens again. So I think that ability to express changes with age and with the certain parts of life where you go. Yeah, definitely.
As we get older, you say that our ability to express changes. Do you think our need to express changes as well? Because I've certainly felt that. I feel like as I've got older, as I've got closer to 40, and I am 40 now, that it's like the longing to express yourself fully just gets stronger and stronger.
I think that there is, and because your expression changes for a number of reasons, because a lot of what you express when you're younger, giving birth to children, that is a form of your womanhood and expression. As you head towards not being fertile, that sort of expression ends, and I think it does give rise to a different type of expression. You're no longer trying to attract a partner. Your parents, you're no longer trying to, I think, impress, and you're not I think you change from impress to express. I think
Oh, I
that's
love
the change.
that. That's so interesting, isn't it?
I think that's the change. And I think because women, when you get to that age, I'm not looking for anyone to impress. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore. I've done my
Exactly.
work, I've done my job, and now it's about me. I think women give up such a massive sacrifice where they actually put their needs secondary. So that hold back can't be forever. There is obviously something in perimenopause and hormonally that God just says, right, you've done your bit of being quiet, being the nurturer and the carer, right? Go like be a fire starter, like just do something else now.
Definitely. I've definitely felt that energy. And I know so many women our age feel that as well. And yeah, I think that there is something natural about it. Like it's the way it's supposed to be. Like women aren't just one thing. Like we go through different seasons and cycles of our lives and we evolve. And our role at a particular point in our life might have been fine for that period of our lives. But then we got to move into the next phase. And actually, it's like God is asking something more from us now or something different. And I think that's really where that expression, standing in your fully expressed self, I feel like that becomes the next stage of our mission. And actually, I just wanted to ask you about your poetry and your songwriting. So, how has that helped you in that journey of expression? And what kind of things are you writing about?
Which is really interesting again, because I've been writing since I was a teenager, and I did write kind of stuff when I was younger about unrequited love, all those people that you're in love with. I don't love you back or know you exist. That kind of stuff. My poetry is very different because my experience of life was limited. What I write about now is sometimes not just about my own relationships, but reflection of the world that I'm seeing around me and the things I'm seeing around me. Which reminds me of the kind of very famous poem by Faiz Ahmed Faiz, मुझसे पहली सी मोहब्बत मेरे महबूब ने मांग और भी गम है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा. You sort of move on to understand the world is so much more than what you thought it was at 18. So I write about political things. I write about trying to connect with God. I still write about romantic things, but there is a lot more introspection, I think, when you're older. It's really interesting to write when you're 16 and to write when you're 46 is completely different.
Do you think that women who join the Rising Sisterhood, how will they benefit from having this creative outlet to write and express how they feel?
Expression, vocalizing what you feel and think, it sort of brings that thing to life a little bit. But also, I think it's really important. I think writing and about whatever you want to write about, whether you express it to a different, but just conversation. From what I know, women don't even talk about the most basic things, about their monthly cycle, about sex within their relationships, about love and what that looks like. They don't openly talk to other women for fear of being judged about things that seem odd. Even if they complain, like you said, we're not supposed to complain. There's so many things that are not expressed. Even talking about your parenting and how that went and whether you feel you failed and where you think you did well and where you don't think you did well. Even discussing things like being a mother. We don't discuss them at the level of depth. It's like, oh, I dropped my kids off here and my kids got A-levels. Oh, my kid did the Alim course. It's so kind of a different level of conversation, I think, that needs to happen about every element of life. Women don't. I think so much of what we speak about is what I would class as small talk and gossip and telling you what's happening in somebody else's life rather than actually speaking. And is it because we don't have the time to sit and think and actually sit in our feelings in the first place that we aren't able to express them? I think so. There's so much of a gap, and I think that even having those conversations, even raising concerns like, is Islam like this? Did the Prophet really, would he say that? This isn't the kind of God that I like. People are scared to say that because it means that you lose Iman if you ask a question.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think we've all probably had those experiences where we've sat in a women's circle or a halaqah or something and you've asked a question and got shot down, so, oh, you shouldn't ask those questions because that's the shaitan just trying to create doubts in your mind. Just follow what Allah said and that's it.
Yeah.
Don't think too much. Literally being told, don't think too much.
Yeah. The questions that seem to be allowed are the questions like, what extra religious practices can I carry out to get closer to God?
Yeah.
How can I be a better Muslim? What more can I do? And what wird can I read? And how much more can I kind of pray and worship? So I think there's a huge amount of, I think it's not just about expressing, but it's about, like, say for instance, reading. And I went through this phase myself, so I can completely understand. Like you're told, if you've got the Quran to read, the best book in the world, why do you need to read anything else, especially fiction, science fiction?
Always used to shock me when people used to say that. So when I first got married, I got really shocked because the way I was brought up in my household, like our house is like a library. Like my parents read so much, and I read, like I was an absolute bookworm growing up. I read absolutely everything I could get my hands on. And I went to my in-laws, and when I got married, I moved in with them. And I kid you not, there wasn't a single book other than the Quran in the house. Not a single book. I'm saying it so many times because I still can't get over it. And when I asked about that, it was that response. It's like, reading is a waste of time. We've got the Quran. You don't need anything else. And honestly, that just blew my mind.
God wouldn't have given us the capacity to write, and God wouldn't have given us the minds that we have if he didn't want us to write and if he didn't want us to create. So that capacity, and I think it's amazing, like when you think about the fact that people have been writing for probably thousands of years and written on similar subjects. People write on love or certain kind of family dramas or thrillers. And yet somebody can come along and still write in a different way because our minds are so unique. It is, again, the volume of writing and stories we produce is another, it's God's shan. It's another glorification of Allah, of the variety that he's created, of the brain is pretty much structurally the same in human beings, but look at the expression. And that is like his expression in the dunya of all the plants and all the flowers and everything that he created. And so it's the same diversity in expression, and that is his expression for me through human beings. And it's like, and it gives you, when you read, eye into somebody else's mind and perspective, and you can sometimes be challenged on your views when things are presented in storytelling. And in the Quran, God does tell us stories. You know, out of all verses, of the 6,000 plus verses, only 500 apply to law. The rest is not law. It is God communicating with us. So I think it's this thing.
Yeah, through story, through narrative.
Through narrative. And by reading that, it expands the human mind.
So storytelling is the way humans understand each other. It's the way we understand ourselves. It's the way that we make meaning. And it's the way we make sense of the world and what is happening to us. Without story, without narrative, we're not really human.
No.
It is an essential component of being a human. Human beings have been telling stories since they were, sitting around the fire in, ancient, cavemen times. This is how parents teach their children.
And usually
through stories.
Usually through song, with something rhythmic. So I'm sure there's been linguistic studies about mums, and they speak all over the world. When they talk to babies, they're speaking a similar, they might be using different language, but the frequency, pitches are similar.
Wow.
And lots of people sing because that's an easier way to learn and pass things on. So, all of those kinds of types of expression. So expression is really important in so many different ways. And I think we sort of limit ourselves because obviously some expression involves joy. And especially if you're a Muslim, you're not here to enjoy this life. What is it? A prison for the believer and a paradise for the disbeliever. So if you're enjoying the life at all, you're obviously a disbeliever, because really this life should feel like a prison sentence.
Oh my God.
It's all of this kind of really heavy, awful stuff.
It's one of my biggest gripes about common, Islamic narratives, which is that, we are here to suffer. That life is purely test and trial and tribulation, and we are literally here to suffer. And I think it's been so twisted because Allah has said that yes, we will face challenges and trials and tribulations. That's part of the human experience. We can't avoid it. There will be pain, and there is also enjoyment. And how many times in the Quran does Allah tell us to enjoy the blessings that he has given us as well? It's both. But for some reason, our scholars have just all fixated on the suffering aspect of it and demonized enjoyment and fun and lightness and even laughing.
Yeah.
Even if you laugh too loud, apparently that's not Islamic, which is, wow, that just blows my mind.
And so like expression is a really broad kind of subject area. It's not just about saying the things we're angry about, but expression in all its forms. For me, the female was created and is part of beauty, just like the flowers. A woman, that's one of her nature is beauty. To see that as completely a terrible thing that needs to be fully covered up. So if God gave men strength, And they express that through building tall buildings and bombs. And,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at the structure of the world, the physical structure, architecture, and what we've created, that's male expression of strength, physical strength. And our expression is beauty, which includes dance and song and all of those things. But we're not allowed to express beauty, because beauty is a natural part of being a woman, but it should not be expressed. Strength is a natural expression of what God has created man for, but that is applauded in all its, no matter whether that's violent expression, but strength, a show of strength. They say a show of strength, but what about a show of beauty?
Do you know what? Oh my God, that is amazing. I've never thought of it in that way before. So I've thought and reflected a lot on this idea of beauty and how women are just, not allowed to express their femininity through showing their beauty. And I've got a big problem with that. But I've never compared it to how men's sort of, natural attributes and things that women might find attractive, like strength and physicality, right, are not, men aren't told to hide that in the same way that women are.
So if you think about even back in, when they had the knights and they used to have the jousting and, the sword fighting, and all of that is men showing off their natural quality God given to them.
Yeah.
And nobody would bat an eyelid. But so why can't I sing? And why
Every
can't
sporting
I dance?
event.
Exactly. That's male expression. And so why is there such a restriction on something that is naturally God given to us?
So true.
Instead of seeing beauty, if people are seeing vulgarity, then that's an issue that they need to deal with.
So, Kausar, actually, I wanted to mention, because I know you've touched on it, but you've not explicitly said that you actually did an Alima course yourself, didn't you, some years ago?
I wouldn't say that it's an Alima course, because that's very structured in a really specific way and has an end point. I went back to study in my 30s and I did 4 years. So I studied some materials that would be studied on an Alima course. So I studied Surf and Nahu and Hadith, Asul al-Fiqh, Asul Hadith, Balagha, some of the subjects that now, because of perimenopause, have left my mind.
So what are those things that you mentioned? Can you just explain a little bit about what they are?
Surf is like morphology of Arabic words. Nahu is grammar, Arabic grammar. Obviously, Hadith studies, which is like the main books of Hadith. Mishkat is one of the ones we studied. Akhlaq is about manners and behavior. And then I studied Balagha, which again is a language-related topic. And Usul Fiqh, obviously, Islamic law. And Usul is the principles of the fiqh. And Usul al-Hadith is the principles behind Hadith. So, and the Arabic language, I studied that as well. Arabic, a bit of language and literature as well. So I studied for about 4 years, and I also, alongside that, studied Islamic herbal medicine, which is called Tib, for 4 years, which was really interesting. So I studied a range of subjects, but I didn't get an Alima certificate, which is not what I wanted to get in the first place. I do not want to be an Alima. But yeah, I did study for 4 years, and that was really interesting. And that studying that later in life, in my 30s, was absolutely crucial. There's no way that I could have understood that stuff when I was 18. And getting young girls to age 12 plus, 12 to 18, to do Alima courses is completely inappropriate. And I think could be sinful, because that's the time where they should be playing, because they're still children. Again, I will go into why I think that. They are under 18 and they're still children, and they shouldn't be alimas, and they do not have the life experience to understand a lot of what they're taught, and it can often make them arrogant, judgmental, but also make them rebel and hate the religion because of what's being taught, because they cannot relate to a lot of the fiqh, which is about marriage, sexual relationships, all of these things that they have not yet experienced and cannot comprehend. So I think there's a huge amount of parents trying to get tickets to heaven based on the backs of their children. And I think that in itself is a really problematic issue. Your children are a amana and a trust from God for you to raise them as human beings with critical thinking, who at the age of 18 plus should be able to choose whatever faith they want. There is no compulsion in any religion, and they are their own person, and nobody can guide except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is your job, to raise them healthy, mentally, expose them to all the things they need, and so they're successful in dunya and they can earn enough to live well. Not teach them Islamic studies and then not give them a proper education so they can never provide for themselves, boys or girls. And I think that's really, really important, that study of being an alim or looking into the deen should happen when they're older and they can comprehend the deen and they've actually made that choice for themselves. Your children at the age of 8, or put them in Hafiz club, are not a way for you to get to heaven. They are not a stepping stone for your your heavenness, even though you're not practicing properly or praying or doing the things that you need to do, or being nice to your neighbors, or just being a good person. But your kids are forced to sort of compensate.
Yeah, for your shortcomings and failures. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree with that completely. And you say you didn't intend on getting an Alima qualification. That wasn't ever your end goal. So what did you take from it?
I was really, really, really lucky. I think I took a lot from that learning that I did. My intention was, because there was a lot of issues that I had that I didn't like about what I'd heard about the Prophet and what he said about women, and even some of the laws in Islam and the Quran and how they related to women. I couldn't get my head around that. I didn't feel like I had any kind of relationship with God, to be honest with you. And this thing that everyone seems to have, which I think must be impossible. Oh, I love God, just love him. How can you love without knowing, without making a relationship? It's hard enough to love a human being. To get to know, you have to take time. It's a relationship. And people who just say, oh yeah, of course I love God. Anything's wrong, just love God more. Like, how? And I always found that really, like, there's either something really wrong with me because everyone else seems to love God and they seem to be getting on fine. I just seem to have issues, obviously. So for me, my intention always was like studying the Arabic languages, understanding the Quran better. I thought I had to learn Arabic because that's what I was told, which now I realize you don't have to learn Arabic. The Hadith stuff, and some of the Hadiths are really, really problematic that I was hearing. They weren't the things in the Quran, and I kept on getting one of the things that I was told. I mean, one of many things that I was told that I found really hard. Obviously, everything is not in the Quran. God couldn't put it all in, because God obviously can't express himself, is not articulate enough to get everything he wanted in the Quran. So men had to finish the job, and they wrote all these extra books because God couldn't like put in that particular number or this particular sentence in the Quran. He couldn't fit it.
Did you actually hear someone say that?
This is actually common belief that we need other books because God, if he had included everything he wanted in the Quran would be this big, and it wouldn't be like that. It'd be too big a book. And I'm like, so the most concise in articulation, God, the perfect, supreme, eternal being, who can express better than God? Who can write better than God? And he couldn't actually. That's an actual insult.
Well, men obviously.
Men. And so men are going to finish the job. So when God didn't clarify something, or he didn't express something well enough, they're going to finish his expression for him. Wow. If that's not the biggest insult, and I would be in fear of what I'm going to say when I get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, what did you say about the fact that I couldn't put in the book what I wanted to express to my creation? So for me, it was really, really important to understand the relationship between Quran and everything else that's been written in Islam by all these male scholars who are amazing, and oh my God, they were so pious, and what they're telling me and what the Hadith is in compared to the Quran. And I didn't understand any of that because, again, I just was told what I was told by my parents and at the mosque. So for me to understand what is the essence of my faith, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's relationship with me, which is the biggest thing I think for me. I think it relates to a point you made earlier. This world has many variables in it. It was created to test us. So God has created lots of variables, which means every human being is going to have some bad stuff happen to them and some good stuff happen to them coincidentally because of the amount of variables God's put in, whether it's through genetics. Some of us are going to get a recessive disorder. Where we are born, there might be a war, a famine, poverty. So we've got circumstances that are going to mean some bad things happen, some good things happen. That is not God testing me. That is the test he created in this world as a functional part of this world. He is not testing me. He's put me in a testing situation. He's always on my side. He's never testing me. He is always supporting me. That's the difference for me. This world is a test, but God is in my corner. So that is what I took away from that. And that shifted a lot of my thinking and my relationship, which is the thing I don't want to be the best in Arabic and memorize this. I want to have a relationship where I have a better understanding of how me and God interact in this world. Because God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, created this world to say, why did he create it? So he could be known.
Oh, that is such a beautiful answer. I'm so glad I asked you that. And thank you so, so much, Kausar. I'm so excited for what you're going to bring, your insights, your experience, your knowledge. It's going to be life-changing, I think, for so many women who wouldn't have ever heard anyone speak about these matters in the way that you do. And even though we've spoken about these things so many times over however many years we've known each other, I always feel like after I speak to you, you open another part of my mind. So I'm really excited for the ladies that are going to join and who are going to benefit from your wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.